anyone of any note really is a warlord. So like that's hardly a black mark against his character. And there are loads of things that he doesn't have to do but does because he thinks they're the right thing to do. And actually, you know, I think that's mildly worthy of praise.
Yeah, I'll give him credit when it's due. But I'll point out when he's not this saintly type, perfect magic granddad type figure.
Sure, that's definitely true.
Yeah. I mean, for example, he died almost penniless.
Yeah.
He was sort of a sultan of Egypt and Syria, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful person in the Near East, Middle East. And he died without any real personal fortune. You know, there you go. Right there, that says something about the person.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think that's to his credit. You know?
That was a point in his favour. Yeah. That he wasn't.
I wasn't sure if you were condemning him.
No. That's that's great. He wasn't avaricious. For himself or anything. But okay, so we left off at Acre. So I mentioned when Richard's ships first sort of sail up to Acre, which is right on the coast. There's a massive supply ship, a Muslim one, meant to be resupplying Acre, because Acre's still being held by the Muslim forces. And he sees it and boards it straight away and sort of pilfers it and then sets fire to it and sinks it. And historians have looked back, or I think Muslim chroniclers at the time said, that moment that was a really big moment strategically from the point of view of the Muslim side, that from that point on, they really needed that supply ship badly.
Well, yeah, after 18 months of being besieged and your only supply comes from sea, and that's intercepted, yes. Yeah. The Muslim garrison of Acre is definitely going to feel that.
Yeah, they were doomed. Yeah. Sort of doomed by that point. So it's quite quickly, within a few weeks of Richard turning up, that he gets everything sort of sorted out, really. Yeah.
Immediate impact.
Because, you know, we've said it before and we'll say it many more times in this and the next episode. If there's one thing Richard is good at, it's sieging a castle.
Because that's basically what medieval warfare was in Europe at this point.
Yeah. Very
few large field battles, lots of small sieges of not very important places, frankly.
Yeah. So he saw, and also the Crusaders had suffered from where there's more than one person trying to be in control.
Well, yeah.
And like a lot of these things, you really, really want one mind controlling it.
Yes, but the problem that we have here is there's a formal system of rank and hierarchy that is underpinned by a series of gargantuan egos and no clear ability for anyone to establish a legitimate pecking order.
Yeah. Well, until Richard turns up.
Well, he doesn't even establish a legitimate pecking order. He just says, I'm Richard and I'll fight everyone, basically. And everyone's like, okay, I don't actually want to fight the guy. So Richard's ego basically presses him into first place. But this offends everyone else in his coalition. Like he ends up essentially alienating them all and causing them all to go home.
Well, I mean, part of that is, of course, true. But he is a king. The only other king there is Philip.
Yeah.
Well,
he wasn't it Leopold of Austria or something? Vassal of the Holy Roman Emperor.
Yeah, so he wasn't a king.
Sure, he wasn't a king, but he's still someone important. Richard disrespects him.
So if you think of maybe like an officer corps, in the mess of an officer corps, you would have, everyone's supposed to be a type of equal. It's supposed to be like, you know, the common room at a university or something. No one's formally exactly the boss of anyone else. Yeah. But a general is superior to a captain at the same time. So it's a bit like that. So if you're the king, if you're a king, he's definitely above Leopold.
I'm not saying he's
and
not.
Yet it's also supposed to be, on some level, they're supposed to treat each other with complete respect, and on some level be equals, although they're not. It's, you know.
The thing is, it's one thing Richard being like, I'm a king, therefore I'm above you, which is obviously true. But it's another thing, like, at one point, he rips down one of Leopold's standards. Yeah. And it's like, okay, you know, maybe you don't want to do that. you know, because he's going to take like the 5,000 men he's got and go home. You know, maybe they would have been useful. Never mind. You know, it's not, like I said, it's not that these things aren't true on paper or anything like that. It's just they're not clever moves to make, and they're not germane to controlling and commanding a coalition force that actually doesn't have to be there if it doesn't want to.
That's the key point. It's a coalition effort. Yeah. So that event where he rips down Leopold's flag from the walls of Acre after they take Acre. Yeah. Richard would have argued, and other people have argued, that Leopold was in the wrong for doing that in the first place. Richard wasn't. Richard was doing the correct thing, really.
Which is why Leopold stayed and was like, "Good point, Richard. You're right."
Yeah, no.
He went home.
It pissed off Leopold so much that he went home. Yeah. And in the next episode, it's Leopold that imprisons Richard on the way home. So it was
spoiler alert again.
Politically, it was a really bad move. We said in the first one, Churchill said that Richard was politically a child.
Yes, which is totally true. Yeah. And this is one of those really great examples, because Leopold's men took this section of the wall or whatever, which is why they put up his standard. Let him have it. You know, it's not like, what would be the reason to, oh no, I'm taking that down. Why? We took this. Yeah, well, I'm King Richard. Okay, Richard.
No, but I mean, I think it'd probably be a bit more than that. It's like, well, if you let that slide, it's one of those things. It's like, there's sort of protocol here.
Yeah, but this goes both ways, because you know, if
that's politics for you, isn't it? It's a difficult decision.
It is, yeah. Because I mean, there's one thing, like, okay, they've put their banner up on a section of the wall. Okay, well, you go put your banner up on the citadel then. You know, so your banner is higher than theirs. You're not taking anything away from them, but you still anyway. You know, the point being, there are definitely better ways politically to handle this, and Richard's massive ego gets the better of him on every occasion. Yeah. And I'm not saying he doesn't even deserve to have this ego, because I think if anyone deserves the ego, it's the guy with the biggest empire and who is personally the mightiest warrior. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But they can always just go home, Richard.
Yeah. There's a thing though, isn't there? It's like a balancing act. It's like, if you let him get away with that, some people, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Sure. And it's like, is he going to, if I don't sort of stamp my authority on things, is he going to end up just completely taking the mickey endlessly?
Maybe.
I'm going to look weak, and that's a bad political move as well.
Possibly.
Yeah. There's that, because that thing about it's a flag, I'll just let him have it. I think, no, it's a big thing. It's like a really big thing.
I'm not saying it's not a big thing.
It's like a fairly big deal to them, anyway.
But even then, there are ways of doing these things. Obviously, Richard didn't approach it in the right way. You know, like, you know, so Leopold, I think that might be a bit of an issue. You are just a duke, you know, and I am a king. Do you not think? Maybe there could have been some, you know, tete-a-tete over it, but instead Richard just tears it down. It's okay.
Throws it in the ditch, they say.
Yeah, not even respectfully, just like, okay, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, so a quick quote here from Winston Churchill on Acre. He says, quote, "The glamours of chivalry illume the tale of the Third Crusade. All the chief princes of Europe were now in line around the doomed stronghold of Saladin, Acre, rivalling each other in prowess and jealousy. The sanctity of their cause was no bar to their quarrels and intrigues. King Richard dominated the scene, fighting always in the most dangerous places, striking down the strongest foes." Richard fought personally all the time. They seem to love it. Yeah. He negotiated all the time with Saladin, or Saladin's brother, actually. An agreement was, in fact, almost reached. To save his garrison, Saladin offered to surrender his Christian captives, to pay a large indemnity, and to give up the cross, a small fragment of the cross. The cross.
The true cross. Allegedly.
And to give up the cross captured by him in Jerusalem, on which Christ, though this after 1,200 years may not be certain, had suffered. But yeah, it's obviously nonsense. All relics
it's totally true, because the legend says it's true.
But the negotiations failed, and Richard, in his fury, massacred in cold blood the 2,000 Saracen hostages he had been delivered as guarantees. Within 5 weeks of the arrival, he brought the 2-year siege to a successful conclusion. So there's a few things there.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of glossing over the difficulty of actually taking Acre. There's obviously like fighting the streets, and Richard is like running down streets, gathering hordes of men, and personally charging to the ranks of the Saracens and cutting them up. Like, it's actually wild when you go into the detail of the Siege of Acre. It's like, you are the king. Like, this is so phenomenally dangerous. What are you doing? And yet he comes through it all unscathed, just covered in other people's blood. And it's just like, okay, that's wild. I mean, if you're like the Saracens, you flee out of Acre, and it's like, what happened? The King of England was just hacking everyone up in the streets, and he was like all on his own. And then a couple of his men arrived, and he was like, right, we're going, lads. And it's like, oh my God. Like, you'd be like, what the hell are we dealing with here?
Yeah.
That's a maniac.
A great knight wearing the livery of the King of England. No, the King of England himself. Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. He had a giant bloody Dane axe and he was hacking people in half. It's like, okay.
There's a thing in history, and it's quite rare, or maybe it's less rare than you might think, but sometimes a leader just actually gets stuck in themselves. I mean, Alexander and Pyrrhus are great examples.
It is quite rare, though.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time, it's not the case. Napoleon, Ridley Scott, where it just, you know, because most men aren't built for that, really. You know,
like Alexander was supposed to have been wounded like 30 times. He was first over a wall a couple of times. Yeah. He'd lead a charge, be like the front horse in an arrow-headed cavalry charge. That's Alexander. Pyrrhus would have one-on-one combats with people all the time. Yeah. Would be involved in actual sword play in battles all the time.
And like all this sort of stuff. But that's actually quite unusual. You know, usually it's like how that's phenomenally dangerous. And you'd have to be some sort of hulking maniac to want to do that, let alone be allowed to do that.
Right. And it's more common in the ancient world, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But even then, still not all that common.
No, it's still phenomenally dangerous. I mean, okay, you wear an armour, but still, it's easy to get killed when you're first into a group of enemy men. I mean, Christ.
And Richard was one of those in that mould.
Yeah.
Where he was... Also, I think it's, obviously, I suppose, not only are you good at fighting and you love fighting, you actually genuinely enjoy it.
It's a passion.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's more than just you enjoy it. You sort of can't stop yourself almost.
And this is something that comes up over and over with Richard.
And have complete confidence in yourself as well. Yeah. That's the other thing. You know you're good at it.
Yeah. That's another thing. Because I always think about this like, okay, say you're pretty good, but surely eventually you're going to come across some other guy who's pretty good as well, and perhaps a bit better than you. You know,
that's the worry, isn't it? Right.
Why wouldn't you be worried about it? Yeah. Like, well, look at him. He's a giant warrior. He's obviously, you know, he's been fighting for 20 years. Well, he might beat me. You know, but Richard just, and like you get the people like Alexander, Pyrrhus, Richard, who just never seem to worry about it. I guess they are the guy. Like,
yeah, they are. Richard is the one who knocks.
Yeah. They are the guy that you come up against, and he's this hulking dude who can't be beat. But,
well, I think the psychology of that, like a boxer or an MMA fighter, your psychology has to be that I'm number one.
Yeah.
You can't really walk in the ring otherwise. Well, you can, but you've nearly already lost. Yeah. The psychology is that I'm the best. Very few fighters have sort of a very nuanced psychology of, I know I'm not the best and I have to be humble, and that's where my greatness comes from. So there are some people like that.
Yeah.
But most fighters, especially if they've got an undefeated record, they have to walk in there with like, I cannot be knocked out. I cannot be beaten. I am the best in the world. That's how they do it. I imagine people like Richard and Pyrrhus had that going on inside their own head. I don't know though, of course.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I don't know if they think about it that consciously, because I think there's a part of them that's a lot less rational than that, because it feels when you're reading about these people that they're in some sort of Iliad of their own, in their own head.
Right, yeah.
You know, where it's not, I don't even know if they think they can be beat, because I think they think it's just not part of the story or something.
Right, yeah.
Like, and if I die heroically, then I die heroically. Great, you know. Like, it's not even a problem, you know. Yeah. So I don't know if they think like the moderns on that. I really don't.
Yeah.
And that's not the impression I get when I'm reading about them either.
Well, no, but that is explicitly what Alexander thought, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, he was happy to die.
Basically, like I'm writing a new Iliad of my own in the East, and I'm Achilles.
Yeah.
In that story, yeah.
Which was kind of true.
Well, yeah. So as you say, at Acre there was all sorts of street fighting, and it was really very bloody. And in fact, there's lots of, whenever you have a long siege, it's very difficult in the pre-modern age, not to end up with all sorts of disease going on.
Oh, yeah, if you don't get dysentery, you're very lucky.
Yeah, or worse things like cholera, typhus, typhoid, all sorts of horrors, really.
Because there are loads of dead bodies around.
Yeah,
rotting in the sun,
and loads of piss and shit.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah,
not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah, it's a disgusting thing.
And they didn't know. I mean, they had a concept of what was sanitary and what wasn't, but they didn't know about the germ theory of disease.
No.
So you didn't necessarily know for sure that if you drink befouled water, that you're going to get dysentery or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was some sort of terrible disease, miasma, going around that even Richard got.
Yep.
And he got very, very ill. Very ill. One account is that like all his hair and nails fell out at one point.
I'm not sure I believe that though, because I mean, what the hell would he have had?
Yeah, what does that? I don't know.
But also, you don't get any comment on his appearance like that later on. Like, it's not like Richard's a weird hunchback, bald or anything like that.
Well, if you got better, your hair and nails can grow back in like a month or two, can't they?
Probably.
But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Apparently, he had to be literally carried around on a bier or on some sort of litter.
And guess what he did during that time?
He was so weak.
Yeah. Guess what he did during that time? He was like, carry me out with a crossbow so I can shoot people on the walls.
Yeah. Still carry me around so I can at least give orders and things.
Yeah. My lord,
I'm not stopping.
Can't you just get better? It's like, no.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.